Welcome, good people of Wisconsin. We are now Facebooking live a virtual press conference for the Coalition for a Just Wisconsin Budget, our very first press conference. We are joined here by many of our supporters for the Coalition for a Just Wisconsin Budget. I'm going to introduce our first speaker is Ben Wilson. He is an organizer working with the Southwest Wisconsin, representing the Citizen Action of Wisconsin. Ben, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you for bringing me on today. As Tim mentioned, my name is Ben Wilson. I am the Driftless Region Co-op organizer with Citizen Action of Wisconsin. I represent about 3,000 activists across Southwest Wisconsin. We focus on issues related to climate, healthcare, and supporting, developing, and expanding our rural communities. Rural climate and healthcare are what we work on, but as we all know, progressive issues are all intersectional. Everything plays into everything else. And to create real change, we need to address change on every front. That's why the Driftless Region Co-op of Citizen Action Wisconsin would like to sign on in favor of the Just Budget. We believe that strong action is needed now, both to build our state back up after it's been ravaged by COVID and to place us in good footing for the future. We need to address the climate crisis. We need to address underlying issues that have been going on in Wisconsin for decades. We need to pass legalize marijuana and tax it so that we have extra revenue coming into the state budget. We need to do all these things now. America and Wisconsin specifically are at a crossroads. And that's why we at Citizen Action Wisconsin Driftless Co-op are so in favor of the Just Budget. I'd like to thank you all for coming on today. Thank you all for your support. And we look forward to working with you to pass a people's budget that works for the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate your wise words. And next, I'd like to call to the podium Mike McCabe. Most of you know Mike. He's the executive director of our Wisconsin Revolution, and previously he led the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign as its executive director for 15 years. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Tim, and hey everybody. Mike McCabe with our Wisconsin Revolution here. It's my pleasure to put our support behind this initiative to advance a budget that is just and addresses the critical issues facing Wisconsin. I've been happy to be a part of the conversation and part of the this effort to pull groups together to offer ideas jointly. Happy to offer our support. We are in a position now as a state where we face some really mammoth challenges going forward. And you know, we're facing at least four emergencies simultaneously: growing economic inequality, social and racial injustice, also health insecurity, and particularly in the midst of a pandemic. And then finally, environmental insanity. These are four mammoth challenges. They're not unique to Wisconsin. These are four national challenges, and some of them are emergencies that really are global emergencies, but they affect our state, and they affect our state in a big way. But you know, given the current landscape, given the way that things are working at the state capitol nowadays, the budget is a unique opportunity, maybe our only opportunity, to really make some gains and get some progress for our state. When you think about it, the governor has called the legislature into special session 7 times, and 7 times the legislators have gavelled in the session and then gavelled out without acting. No meaningful legislation has come of any of those special sessions. The Republicans who control the legislature seem bound and determined not to pass any legislation that the governor would want. The governor, of course, can veto any legislation that the Republicans pass. They don't have the supermajorities needed to override his vetoes. So that leaves Wisconsin in a really precarious position of facing these 4 emergencies, mammoth challenges that will hold our state back, and yet without a clear path forward to making some progress on those issues. That's where the state budget process becomes so critical. The budget is the one and only bill that has to pass every 2 years, and a new one needs to get enacted this year. The governor will make his request next month, then the legislature will take it from there. We have been at our Wisconsin Revolution trying to communicate with the governor since late November, urging him to think bigger and act more boldly than he did in the first go around with his budget proposal, and also asking him to employ a very aggressive negotiating strategy that can compel legislators to bargain in good faith with him. The fact that the budget is the one and only bill that has to pass every session, that makes it so very important that we get as many things in this budget as we possibly can that will help Wisconsin move forward and help our state begin to tackle these mammoth challenges that we face. When you look at the coming legislative session, it's really hard to see, given the politics at the Capitol that are playing out, where we can make progress as a state, if not in the state budget process. So it's encouraging to us to see so many groups zeroing in on the state budget process and acknowledging just how critical it is for us to be impactful when it comes to advocacy regarding the state budget. And it's really encouraging to see so many groups coming together and saying, these are the kinds of things that we want to see in the budget. These are the kinds of advances that we want to see made for our state. We're happy to join in that. And we'll continue to push the governor to be ambitious and to think big and act boldly with his budget request. And then we will continue to advocate, joining together with all these groups as the budget process moves to the legislature, urging those lawmakers, again, to tackle those 4 major emergencies facing our state: economic inequality, social and racial injustice, health insecurity, and environmental insanity. Those are the things that need to get addressed for Wisconsin to move forward and for us to make this state the kind of place that we all want it to be. Thanks so much for being a part of this initiative. I'm proud to join with all of you in pushing for positive change through the state budget process.
Thank you, Mike McCabe. Next, we will hear from someone who's no stranger to the budget process. Tamarine Correlius is from the Wisconsin Budget Project, and that's a project of Kids Forward, which focuses on expanding opportunity for every child, every family, and every community. Thank you for being with us today, Tamarine.
Thanks, Tim. This budget agenda can be the first step towards creating a new economy and responding to the challenges of the pandemic, the recession, and racial injustice. Even before the pandemic, economic gains were not being broadly shared. As the stock market climbed and the top 1% saw their net worth skyrocket, the booming economy was based in part on stripping investments out of communities of color and transferring those resources to the extremely wealthy. And the economy was structured in a way that benefited a select few while blocking people of color from traditional pathways of building wealth. So we shouldn't try to go back to what we've lost before the pandemic, because doing so would be buying back into a deeply inequitable system. Instead, we need to build a new economy, one that makes sure that everyone has the opportunity to climb the economic ladder and make a better life for themselves, one that tackles the enormous gaps in well-being among people of different races, gaps that hold everybody back. Wisconsin's motto is Forward, which reflects the state's longstanding desire to be a national leader. And we can be a national leader as a state where families do not struggle to put food on the table and to provide for themselves. This budget can be a first step towards creating that new economy and making sure that everyone in Wisconsin is valued, able to provide for their family, and to be able to contribute to their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamarine. And thank you for your decades of hard work towards making the budget a tool, a moral document, which we really got it. We need a people's uprising now to make sure that the budget is a moral document. Next, we will hear from someone who's been fighting for the environment in a lot of, for many decades. Don Ferber is a longtime environmental advocate who has especially been involved with the Sierra Club and with 350 Madison. He's a dedicated activist on climate change and clean energy issues, and he's now dedicating time to bringing climate and other justice for all. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Tim, and it's great to be with you and join everybody else in advocating for a just budget that's so badly needed in Wisconsin. I want to point out that climate change and the environment are important and really critical for so many reasons in Wisconsin. That so much of what we value here is dependent upon these issues that have been shown to have disparate and inequitable impacts, unfortunately. We're known for our outdoor recreation opportunities. Those are being threatened by what's going on, by both the pollution and climate change. We are a heavily agricultural state where flooding, droughts, and heat are increasingly disruptive and are threatening our food systems and our very farmers and our rural way of life out here. And our polluted waters are especially harming early childhood development and people's lives, and increase our healthcare costs at a time when we're trying to lower them. And one of the best ways we could lower our healthcare costs is actually rid ourselves of a lot of this toxic pollution. But the good news is that with this budget, we can make some of the changes that we need that will also help our economy and our people, but we have to do this in a just way and make sure that what's happening here serves everybody. So there are really three primary areas we're trying to focus on for a just climate and energy budget. One is energy itself. And that is the governor put together a task force on climate change that has a lot of great recommendations there. And we want most of those supported, but also, we can reach 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035. And it will help our economy. The clean energy is now cheaper than most of the fossil fuel energy. And it's really the way to go that will help our workers and our economy and provide for a cleaner energy future for everybody. And, through various state programs and like the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, we can, help prioritize projects that will actually lower our energy use. So we want to support all that. One thing we want to point out with transportation is the governor they have already voted and allocated $1 billion for an expansion of the I-94 project in Milwaukee. It is larger than any other single item in the budget. And if we would eliminate this, we could use this to do so much that we need, because this is a project that increases inequity in Milwaukee and has been separating communities and harming especially communities of color with the pollution. So it's time to get rid of that project and do things that will help us and provide more clean energy and more transportation options for everybody. And finally, in the environmental arena, we know that we want to protect our lands, and we have the stewardship program that needs renewing to protect what we value and attract people to Wisconsin and to our wonderful resources we have here. But we have so many water pollution problems. PFAS has become a huge issue that people are aware of, and we don't even know how much trouble it's causing, but we really need to do something about that. And of course, the lead in water pipes, where it's harming children early on, and then they're victims of that throughout their life, and then we don't support them later on when that help is needed. We're taking action at the federal government level with a new administration that's trying to deal with many of these issues, and especially climate change. We can do that here and make a lot of progress for people in this state and reduce a lot of the harms that are happening and provide more equity and justice for everybody, through climate change and the environment. So it's great to be here with everybody else supporting all the things that are necessary to provide a just budget and help the residents of our state move forward in an equitable manner. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Don. All right, let's have an uprising, huh? Next, we'd like to hear from Debra Gillispie. Debra lost her only son to gun violence. And what she did with that was it moved her to start an organization called Mothers Against Gun Violence. She's now teamed up with and is staffed with the Wisconsin Anti-Violence Effort, or also known as WAVE. Thank you for being here, Debra.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I do advocate for a just budget. As Tim said, my name is Debra Gillispie, and as a gun violence survivor and WAVE community organizer, my budget requests to Governor Evers and Lieutenant Governor Barnes are to include funding for community-based gun violence prevention and interruption programs, and create a governor's task force on gun violence prevention that would include those impacted by gun violence. And thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Thank you, Debra. You're quite a wonderful addition to our team. Next, I'd like to invite a dear friend, someone who's helped me in many ways as we try to build unity around the state. Earnestine Moss is the chair of the Committee on Community Coordination for the NAACP Wisconsin State Conference of Branches. Thank you for being here, Earnestine.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting the NAACP Wisconsin State Conference to this press conference. We appreciate it. And I just want to say that we are in agreement with the just budget that was put forth. I also want to say that I am here on behalf of our state president, President Harris. He had an emergency this morning and has asked me to sit in on his behalf. And we just want to make sure that you know that the NAACP is in support of many of the efforts that have been put on the table from the governor's office. However, we also want the legislature to know that we expect the legislature to govern and be in support of the people of Wisconsin, where the NAACP is an organization that was formed in 1909, and its mission is to secure political, educational, social, and economic equality and rights for all, and to eliminate race-based discrimination, and to ensure the health for all people. So the items that have been put forth illuminates that, and we are in support of it. We're especially in support of those items that ask for equity in health, because we know that the coronavirus affects people of color, especially African Americans, disproportionate than other or the mainstream populations. So it's important for us to make sure that funding coming from the federal government is targeted toward those populations or those counties and districts where you have high population of people of color, because people are dying and we can do better. As Mike McCabe said, I believe in his statements, that the legislature has met only to gavel out minutes later or seconds later. And we are hoping that the legislature will come together, discuss our issues, and act on them. We're particularly concerned about the prisoner pipeline that's going on in Wisconsin for young people. And we are hoping that more attention will be paid to the Constitution section that mandates or require equitable and uniform support for our school districts. So I am also, we're also interested in making sure that something is done about the climates. So I won't try to repeat everything that everyone else has said. I just simply want you to know that the NAACP Wisconsin State Conference of Branches are in support of a just budget, the call for a just budget. And we hope that our legislature will work with our Governor Evers and Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes to do what is best for the citizenry of Wisconsin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernestine. While we're on the subject of the NAACP, I know that you kind of referenced the fact that the NAACP is the oldest civil rights, social justice organization in the nation, and I'm proud to be a member, and I encourage you all to support that organization in any way you can. Next, on that subject, I want to bring in Professor Eugene Pitchford III. Professor Pitchford teaches at Concordia College in the education department. He is also a lifelong educator that has a passion for social justice. And finally, Eugene is an educational consultant and an author. So please take it away, Professor Pitchford.
Thank you, Tim, for having me be a part of this group. My name is Eugene Pitchford, and today I'm representing the NAACP Milwaukee chapter, in which our president for the chapter is Clarence Nicholas. My effort in this space today is in the education space, and I'm here to advocate and fight and inform and teach on the unbalanced, unequitable public school budgets that has been in place for a while now, and briefly discuss some of the effects it has on our students. Just being under budget. We all are asked to do more with less. And it takes away from the expertise and the magic that our classroom teachers do. I mean, our teachers are working as hard as anybody else during this time. And without having the proper funding, it doesn't make the job impossible, but it compromises it significantly. And so just having the appropriate resources will be an added boost and an added pickup for all of our public school educators, because we believe our children deserve the best. And right now they're not getting the best from a resource standpoint. From Every Child Succeeds Act, we want to make sure that the supplemental funds is going down the ladder of budget process now. The supplemental funds, we want to make sure that they're being used appropriately and just. And once again, our students deserve the best. So someone might be asking, you know, what are some of the what are some of the specific spaces that we're advocating for a just budget? So we're going to include early childhood, psychologists, counselors, nurses, social workers, our bilingual services and bicultural services. Those are specific areas that are often first to go. And we want to make sure that those wrap around, and those aren't wrap around, but for the space of this conversation, we need to make sure those wraparound services, because they actually support our students, are in place. And now, so then the next space for me is why? Why does it matter now? And so if we were underfunded and we're having trouble supporting kids before COVID-19, so like we could have had this conversation last year at this same date last year, and the same date the year before that. But in this space that we have right now, let me paint a picture. Let me paint a picture for you And I want you to walk through some shoes of some students. Number one, our students have been significantly impacted by the school to pipeline process. It has to stop immediately. Like, we're just setting kids up for failure. And a budget can support that, to support dismantling that school to pipeline process. Number two, poverty. The poverty has increased since this time last year. Number three, COVID. And as stated before, some other people said it great. The COVID is really impacting what we're doing. And there's going to need a budget to support our students in that process. And so some people say, like, we're in the era of COVID. I prefer to call it COVID unrest, which leads to the social unrest, which leads to the racial unrest. And as you can see, this is not normal times. Like, you're not going to solve this by doing less and supporting less. So hopefully I've laid out a call to action of why it's needed. So we're calling on our governor, Tony Evers. We're calling on our Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, to act swiftly, to act appropriately, so our Wisconsinite students have the best opportunity to really dream, explore, excel in the classroom, and get the education they deserve to become great. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Professor Pitchford. Nicely said. And I want to just toot your horn a bit. Professor Pitchford has been with us since meeting one, has joined the steering committee for helping to draft our educational positions, and he's on the steering committee for the overall coalition, despite his heavy academic demands at Concordia University. So thank you for stepping up in the big way that you have. Also on the steering committee is our next speaker, who's been with us from the beginning too, a longtime union organizer and member with the local UE 1107. Joni Anderson currently is a member of Our Wisconsin Revolution and Citizen Action of Wisconsin, the Driftless Co-op. And as I said, a steering committee member and a leader in this coalition for a just budget. Go ahead, Joni.
Our state has a lot of pressing issues. Many of them directly affect the workers in our state, such as raising the minimum wage. It has been 11 years since the minimum wage has been raised. Currently, there are 29 states that have a higher minimum wage than what Wisconsin has, above the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, and we are asking for 15. It is no longer enough to respond by saying people are already paying more than what the minimum wage is, so we don't have to address this issue. But rather, when our elected officials are asked to go to work to earn their taxpayer-funded wages and benefits to help fix our unemployment system, and they choose to gavel in and gavel out and continue to play the blame game, it is our people, our workers, that suffer. We're also asking for collective bargaining rights to be restored in Wisconsin in both public and private sectors, so that all people have a right to be in a union, so that all workers have a voice in their workplace. And with the pandemic, the way it has been across the country and in our state, people need a voice for safety and protections at work. We are also asking to have a mandated paid sick leave put in place for all workers. And this is important because, you know, if people come in contact with somebody at work who tests positive, or even in their family, they're immediately sent home from work. They're not allowed to stay there, you know. So that goes on to why we need a fully paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Act that's run by the DWD and funded through employee contributions. These are all issues that would help all workers in Wisconsin. We need money for mass transit for those people who are disabled and need a safe way to get to work, or for people who either do not drive or choose not to drive. We need driver's license for immigrants in the state who work hard in the fields and other essential employment opportunities, and they deserve them. You know, they deserve to have their a legal driver's license, just like all of us. And they're not asking for any more. They're just asking to be able to drive legally. We need fair hiring practices at all times where discrimination does not happen. And we also need a fair taxation system that works for all workers in Wisconsin instead of just the big corporations, corporate loopholes that companies such as Amazon take advantage of. And since companies like Amazon are expanding in our state, it's time that they pay their fair share. It's time to start building a tax system in Wisconsin that will sustain our workers, not just the elite. And whether it's looking for quality educators or people moving to our state, young people staying in our small towns and rural areas, it is becoming increasingly important to provide reliable, high-speed broadband throughout the state and in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. And thanks for serving on the steering committee and keeping this work going. On that note, I want to call our last speaker, someone who's been involved since the very beginning as well. Reverend Mary Kay Baum is a retired Lutheran minister. She's been on the county board, at Dane County Board. She's run for mayor in Madison. She's been a longtime political activist and a dear friend working to build unity around the state. Mary Kay, why don't you close things up for us?
I'll close up by really stressing that unless we look at where the money comes from, how it gets taxed, we're not really looking at the whole budget. I tell the people in the village of Ridgeway, 600 people in our small village, that there's an elephant in the room when they're complaining about property taxes going up. 110 years ago, in 1911, Wisconsin, at the prodding of a former governor, Bob La Follette, and after winning a voter referendum on a margin of better than 2-to-1, Wisconsin approved the first state income tax and actually approved it before we had a federal income tax. It was highly graduated, and the new revenue was meant to be returned to local units of government in order to get away from the property taxes, which was recognized at that time already as being very regressive and not according to ability to pay. Now we have a problem because the way our income tax has been adjusted, especially since 2011, when at the last minute, a major, huge manufacturer's tax credit, it was called. There was really a loophole that allowed some of our wealthiest to pay no income tax or virtually no income tax. And it had a huge impact on our whole state income, reducing it. The schools who had been on a 2/3 funding from the state, kind of in mind with what it was supposed to be originally when we had income taxes first established here 110 years ago, that 2/3 funding basically stopped for the public schools. And municipalities also, who can be pitted against school districts, municipalities are also super dependent on property taxes. In fact, both forms of local government, or all the forms of local government, are more reliant on property taxes than any other state in the Midwest, and we're like number 7 in the country for dependence on property taxes, when we were the first state to pass income taxes so that we wouldn't be dependent on property taxes so much. Anyway, one other side, and I get a lot of this from the budget project and work like Tamarine has done, and to show that we have to look at where our income comes from and make it again, so that people are taxed according to their ability to pay, and that is shared with the local governments. A moral budget considers who pays and who benefits. And right now, it is not just. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. All right. Well, you've been a great audience. You've mostly been a great set of panelists, and we're really so honored to have all of you on the team. We can grow this every day. More and more groups are signing on. Goodbye, everyone.